My name's Eric. I'm 27. And until last year, I thought I lived in one of the safest small towns in Oregon. That was before I realized someone had been inside my house, watching me without me knowing. It started on a Monday night in late September. I had just moved into a small single-story rental after a messy breakup. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living room, but it was mine. I had a habit of falling asleep on my couch with the TV on low. That night was no different. The clock on the wall read 1:47 a.m. when I shut my eyes. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I woke up to the faintest creak from the hallway. My first thought was that it was the house settling, but then I remembered this was a rental built in 2015. No ancient floorboards to creak. I held my breath, listening. Silence. I eventually convinced myself it was nothing. Got up, locked my bedroom door, something I never did before, and went to bed. The next night, I was on my laptop until past midnight. I kept catching myself glancing at the hallway, like some instinct was telling me something was off. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again. Creak, pause, creak, almost like someone was slowly shifting their weight on the floor. This time, I grabbed my phone and shined the flashlight toward the hallway. Nothing. But when I walked over, I noticed something strange. My bedroom door, which I had left halfway open earlier, was now wide open. I didn't remember opening it. That night, I didn't sleep much. By the third night, I was on edge. I checked every lock twice, shut every curtain, and even wedged a chair under the front door handle. I forced myself to stay awake in the living room, scrolling on my phone. At 3:14 a.m., I heard it. Not a creak this time, a whisper, a low, barely audible murmur coming from my bedroom. My body locked up. I muted the TV and strained my ears. I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely a voice. I grabbed my baseball bat and walked toward the bedroom, heart pounding. When I flicked on the light, the room was empty, but the closet door was open. Inside, tucked between my hanging clothes, was an old, worn sleeping bag. I froze. I didn't own a sleeping bag. I called the police immediately. 2 officers showed up, searched the place, and told me there was no one there. They suggested maybe a previous tenant left the sleeping bag and I just hadn't noticed. But that didn't explain the whispers or the open door. When they left, I decided I wasn't taking any chances. I went to Walmart and bought a set of cheap indoor security cameras, one for the hallway, one for the living room, and one for my bedroom. That night, I slept with the bedroom door locked and my phone recording live footage. I woke up the next morning, half dreading what I'd find. The hallway camera had nothing unusual. The living room camera showed me passing through a few times. Then I opened the bedroom footage. At 2:53 a.m., the doorknob started to turn. Slowly, silently, the door didn't open. My lock had held, but then something slid into the bottom gap of the door frame. A shadow. It lingered for a full minute, then moved away. But the worst part? Before leaving, the figure knelt down, pressed their mouth to the gap, and whispered something. I replayed the audio over and over. It was faint, but I could just make out the words. 3 nights left. By now I was terrified. I didn't even want to stay there. But the police told me without more proof they couldn't do much. That night, I stayed awake until 4 a.m., lights on, bat in hand. Nothing happened. But when I checked the hallway camera in the morning, my blood ran cold. At exactly 3:07 a.m., a man's face appeared in the hallway, upside down. Like he was hanging from the ceiling, peeking into frame. It lasted less than 3 seconds before disappearing. I booked a hotel for the rest of the week, but I left the cameras running. When I checked the footage from that night, I almost dropped my phone. At 2:41 a.m., the man, pale skin, dark messy hair, walked straight into my living room. No breaking in, no door opening. It was like he had a key. He stood over the couch for hours, just standing there, watching. Then, around 5 a.m., he walked toward my bedroom door. He placed something small on the floor, knocked once, and left. When I returned the next day, there was a Polaroid photo lying by the bedroom door. It was a picture of me, I moved out that day. Hired movers didn't even go back inside alone. A week later, the police called. They had arrested a man in connection with a string of illegal squatting incidents. Apparently, he would hide in attics, closets, even walls, living in people's homes without them knowing. When they searched the attic of my rental, they found food wrappers, a blanket, and dozens of Polaroids of me, taken over the course of 3 weeks. The officer told me I was lucky. In most cases, the intruder never revealed themselves until it was too late. It's been a year since then. I live in a different state now, in an apartment with multiple locks, reinforced doors, and cameras in every room. But sometimes, at night, I still wake up feeling like someone's watching me. And I swear, last week, I heard a faint whisper coming from the hallway. 3 nights left. It was November 14th, 2017. The wind that night cut through the Wyoming plains like invisible knives. My truck's heater was working overtime, but I could still feel the cold seeping in through the gaps in the door seals. I was hauling a refrigerated trailer loaded with about 18,000 pounds of beef, heading west toward Salt Lake City. It was a run I'd done dozens of times before, Highway 287 southbound, the kind of road that stretches for miles without a single sign of life. Most drivers hated it because it was too lonely, too empty, and too damn easy to drift off into a daydream and miss your exit. But I liked the solitude. No traffic, no distractions. Just me, the road, and the hum of the diesel engine. That night, though, something felt different. The sky was darker than usual, the moon barely visible behind a shroud of low, heavy clouds. My headlights cut through a thick mist that seemed to cling to the asphalt, swallowing up the road ahead. The CB radio was quiet, not a single trucker chatter or weather report. It was like I was the only one alive out there. Around 11:30 p.m., I saw movement in my side mirror. Just a flicker, a shadow that darted out of sight. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a reflection, maybe my tired eyes playing tricks on me. But I kept checking the mirrors, scanning the road behind me. Empty. Still, the feeling of being watched started creeping in. 30 minutes later, I hit a stretch of road where the fog got so thick, I had to slow down to 45. That's when I heard it. A faint, metallic tapping. At first, I thought it was coming from somewhere in the truck. Loose chains, maybe. But when I listened closer, it sounded like it was coming from outside, from the trailer. The tapping turned into a scraping sound, like metal against metal. I flicked on the rear floodlights. Nothing. The trailer doors were shut tight. The road behind me was still empty. Then, a dark shape flickered across my left mirror. My heart skipped. I gripped the wheel tighter and leaned forward, trying to see past the edge of the trailer. But whatever it was gone. I reached for the CB mic, thinking maybe another trucker might be nearby, but the radio was just static. Around 12:20 a.m., I spotted the glow of a gas station sign up ahead, the first sign of life in over an hour. I pulled in, figuring I could use a bathroom break and maybe a cup of coffee to keep me sharp. The place looked old, the kind of station that hadn't been remodeled since the 80s. A single pump, flickering fluorescent lights, and a dusty glass door with a faded open sign. Inside, an older man in a trucker cap stood behind the counter, reading a newspaper. He barely looked up as I walked in. "Coffee?" I asked. He pointed toward a stained pot on a warmer in the corner. As I poured myself a cup, he finally spoke. "You out on 287 tonight?" "Yeah. Heading west," I said. He lowered his voice, almost like he didn't want anyone else to hear. "You see anything strange out there?" I froze mid-pour. "What do you mean?" The man set his paper down. "Guy came through here last week. Said he saw something following his rig in the fog. Swore it was keeping up with him even when he hit 70. Never saw it clear. Just a shadow." 2 nights later, they found his truck abandoned 10 miles down the road. Trailer was empty. He was gone. I chuckled nervously. "Sounds like a ghost story." The man didn't smile. Just keep your eyes on the road, son. And if you see something in your mirror that don't make sense, don't stop. Back on the road, I couldn't shake what the guy had told me. My eyes were glued to the mirrors now, scanning for anything unusual. The fog was still thick, and the tapping sound had returned. Slower this time, almost in rhythm with my heartbeat. Around 1:15 a.m., I spotted a small rest stop up ahead, just a pull-off with a couple of picnic tables and a bathroom building. Normally, I wouldn't have stopped there, too isolated, too creepy, but I wanted to check the trailer again. I parked under a single dim streetlight. The air was freezing as I stepped out. My boots crunched on the gravel as I walked to the back. That's when I saw it. On the left door of the trailer, near the latch, there were deep, fresh scratches. Long, jagged marks like something with claws had been trying to pry it open. I ran my hand over them. The metal was warped, edges sharp. These weren't from road debris. Suddenly, movement in the fog. About 30 feet away, near the tree line, something shifted. Tall, thin shape watching me. My name is Alex Carter, and what I'm about to tell you still keeps me awake at night. I grew up in a quiet little town in northern Pennsylvania, a place where you knew your neighbors and locked your doors more out of habit than necessity. The kind of place where the loudest thing at night was the sound of crickets. Or so I thought. In late September of 2019, I moved back home after finishing college. Money was tight, and my uncle, Mark, offered me his old cabin at the end of Hollow Creek Road. He said it was off the beaten path and quiet, which sounded perfect for someone trying to figure out their next move in life. Hollow Creek Road was a long, twisting strip of cracked asphalt that cut through dense forest. There were only 2 houses on it, my uncle's cabin and an old, decaying Victorian known to locals as the Hollow Creek House. The Hollow Creek House had been abandoned since 1987, when the Henderson family, 2 parents, their teenage daughter, and their little boy vanished without a trace. No one knew exactly what happened. Rumors ranged from a murder-suicide to cult activity to something unnatural that made people go mad. The locals told me to stay away from it. I didn't need convincing. The place looked like it had been pulled straight out of a horror movie. Peeling paint, broken windows, a roof sagging like a tired old man's back. But I still had to pass it every day to get to town. The first time I drove past it at night, my headlights caught something strange. A figure, standing in one of the upstairs windows. It was only for a split second before the trees swallowed the view again, but I could swear it was a woman. My first night in the cabin was uneventful until around 2:43 a.m., when I woke to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate, heavy. I froze. The cabin was deep in the woods. There was no reason for anyone to be out there. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my bed and crept toward the window. But when I looked outside, there was nothing. I tried to go back to sleep, but the feeling that someone had been right outside never left me. 2 nights later, I was driving home from town when I had to slow down. Fog had rolled in thick over the road. My headlights barely cut through it. That's when I saw her again, in the same upstairs window of the Hollow Creek House. Only this time, she was closer to the glass, and her face wasn't right. I could see her eyes glowing faintly, reflecting my headlights like an animal's. Her mouth was stretched into an unnatural, open grin. I slammed the gas pedal and didn't stop until I was at my cabin. A week later, around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of knocking. Not on the door, but on the wall. 3 slow knocks, then silence. I sat there in bed, holding my breath. Then came 3 more knocks, closer this time, right outside my bedroom wall. I called my uncle the next morning. He was quiet for a long time before finally saying, "Alex, if you hear knocking again, do not open the door or window. Just wait until it stops." I asked why. That day, I went into town to talk to the oldest resident I knew, Mrs. Miller, who'd lived there her entire life. She didn't like talking about Hollow Creek House. But after some pushing, she told me, the Hendersons weren't the first ones to disappear. Before them, it was the Crawfords in the 60s. Before them, a man named Albert King in the 40s. That house, it calls to people. And if you hear knocking, it means it's already seen you. She leaned closer. And once it's seen you, it won't stop until you're inside. He only said, because it's not someone who needs help. It's someone trying to get in. It was about 12:30 a.m. when it started. 3 knocks on the wall. Silence. Then 3 more knocks closer. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but before I could dial, my front door swung open. There was nothing but darkness outside. Then, I heard bare feet on the wooden floor. Slow. Coming toward me. I backed into my bedroom and locked the door. Something pressed against it from the other side, slow, deliberate pressure, as if whoever or whatever it was wanted me to know they could get in if they wanted. Then, a whisper. The next day, I decided I was leaving. I packed everything, loaded my car, and told my uncle I'd drop the key off in the morning. That night, I stayed at the cabin one last time. At exactly 3 a.m., I woke up to see a woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was pale, her black hair dripping wet, her eyes glowing faintly, and she was smiling that same impossible smile. She leaned down and whispered in my ear, "It's your turn now." When I woke, I was standing in the hallway of the Hollow Creek house. The walls were rotting, the air freezing, and upstairs, I could hear children laughing. I ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. Come see the house. I never went back. My uncle sold the cabin a month later. But sometimes, when I drive at night, I still see that house in my headlights, and in the upstairs window, there's always someone watching.